What's up, guys? Synthetic Division here. So today we're going to be doing a teardown and overview of the Solo Satoshi Bitaxe GT801. Currently, I've had this running for about as long as I've had the Duo running, and we're sitting at 61 on the ASICs and 61 on the voltage regulator. It's kind of funny; it's the same. We have not adjusted the settings, so 525, 1150. And we're hashing at 2 terahash. So I'm not too concerned about the ASIC temp, but we are going to tear it down, so we'll be re-thermal pasting it. But there's some stuff I wanted to show you on the benchtop that I've had a little bit of an issue that could potentially be a catastrophic issue if it's not dealt with. And we're going to be upgrading the stand that it's in. We're just going to mod the stand it's in so that we can overclock. So 1 minute, guys. We'll switch over to the bench, and I'll have the GT over there. All right, guys. So we're back at the desktop here. Let's do a quick overview of everything that I know about it. So this has two of the BM1370 chips. Its advertised hash rate is 2.15 terahash, plus or minus 10%. 43 watts, plus or minus 10%. Of course, this is according to Solo Satoshi's website. Says that in performance tuning, it has plenty of headroom for mods and overclocking at end user's risk, of course. This does utilize the XT30 connector, which is awesome. Barrel jack's gone. All the components on this one in particular are on the back, which is great. That means that we can direct a fan at the back and be in really good shape. It does have the little tiny OLED screen on it, little 0.91 OLED. It has a 60 by 60 by 25 3500 RPM fan and a chunky boy heatsink. I actually really like this heatsink because of how big it is. It's awesome. I'll be curious to see if it's bared aluminum or if it is anodized or has a coating on the bottom. These are assembled in the United States. They ship from Texas. Pretty cool. So I wanted to show you my problem that I have with mine, and this may not apply to anybody else. So if you may notice, I have 4 screws here. They don't actually go to this. This stand does not have stand. It's supposed to be kind of like the Solo Satoshi, the Bitaxe Gamma and Gamma Duo stand, like this with those standoffs, and it just kind of slides on there and snaps into place. Well, with my particular one, it doesn't. And so it does that and falls off the stand. Now, as I was setting it up, I almost lost it when I was setting it up. I have my miners in the room there, and I set them all on the shelves there. And as I was getting ready to plug it in, it actually fell forward, and I caught it. So we're gonna fix that. Again, that's 3D printing. Not everything is ever gonna be perfect. So one of the things we're gonna fix and address is these standoffs. I'm actually gonna take them off, use a drill and drill a hole for these screws to screw it down. So that way we don't risk losing it again, because that was kind of scary to me. Plus, obviously we're going to do some heat sinks. I've got some heat sinks to upgrade the back end so that we can demand a little bit more out of it. And then I actually have another 60 mil fan. Got this out of an old computer case. It's a Pevia brand, so we'll see how long it lasts. But I do have another fan that we're going to put on the back of the stand somehow. Now, I plan on utilizing the stand. I don't plan on buying another stand at this point in time, because these may, if I get another one of these, they may end up going on a bit disc rack or a bit track rack from a Void Bit. I do have another one in the wing waiting, so let's get into it. Let's just go ahead and tear this thing apart. Let's move everything out of the way. That's the stand. I like the stand. It's got little rubber feet to help it keep it from sliding. Pretty cool. Let's go ahead and tear this down. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to set it like this. And being that this is a 5-point screw setup with springs, we're just going to go nice and easy here. Trying not to crush anything. So that one's loose. That one was really loose. I don't know if it's supposed to be. And we're just going to go corner to corner here, guys. This is probably the best way to take these off to ensure that you don't damage anything. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen this middle one all the way up because in reality it's not doing very much. And once we've got these loose, we can pretty much start going. There's no tension on them. Yep, they're good. We can start pulling them out. And we'll just set them off to the side on the mat there so we don't lose them. Try not to lose the springs, guys. I think it'd be really hard to replace that spring. Little tiny spring tensioner there. And we'll just pull these all off. So this, like I said, this is a dual chip setup, so it has dual voltage regulators, inductor coils, two sets of capacitors, and I think this is another inductor coil. I'm not sure. I'm actually going to look it up once I get the heatsink detached so that we can get an idea. So now when you go to take it, if it's stuck, you can just twist it a little bit like that. So now one thing I want to mention here, this is what I've learned about some of these dual chip guys. So there's the board with the thermal paste. Thermal paste application, so, not exactly the greatest. I am glad to see that this is bare aluminum. The paste right here, now it is super important that you repaste this spot. Right here is the voltage regulator, so it's actually doing double duty. But you also don't want to bear this to that. So make sure that this whole thing's gonna get pasted. But to ensure that we don't have any trouble there, we're going to make sure that we repaste those as well. So technically you'll be pasting in 4 places. So just for a piece of information there you might want to know. I did see some group posts about folks saying that they forgot to do the thermal paste that and they had trouble. So let's get the power screwdriver for the fan. We can get it off. It is a bit dusty. I've been running it for a month, so we're going to clean it while we're at it. I do like the heatsink. It's super chunky, good fin density, and it has direction. But in this model, the direction of the air leak coming out is moot because there's nothing on the front for it to go to. Like on the Gammas, you have direction there. So yeah, pretty nice heatsink. See if we can get a good close up. Well, the thermal paste application is less than desirable, but we'll make sure we've got to get these. We've got to get those things schmooshed really good. We don't want them to have any of these dry spots like here. And that might be the ASICs were running a little warmer, but today is warmer. We had an 80-degree temp day, which is kind of nice. So we might take a look at that. So let's get this cleaned up. I'm going to pause the video for it because this is going to be a little bit of a longer video. So I want to try to cut where I can. So I'm going to pause it. I'll clean this all off. And we'll get some new thermal paste put all over this. Again, lay it on a bit thicker right here for these guys. So let's go ahead and move that out of the way. I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to get this cleaned up and I'll be right back. Okay guys, so before we get too crazy, I wanted to do close up of the board. So there's our ASICs. And then like I said, these are the standoff pads for the power delivery system in the back. We've got our inductor coils, and I believe these are as well. And then we have our voltage regulators right there. A stack of capacitors right there. Our ESP32 right here. Which version does it use? Let's take a peek. So this uses the ESP32 S3 room 1. You can see that there. And then we have a BAP port. So it looks like it no longer has the old school BAP port. It has a ribbon cable. Now I imagine this is for, if you've seen the Turbo Touch, it uses a ribbon cable. So I imagine it's probably for that. And then we have our fan header. The solder on the fan header is not looking too good. A little bit of, I'm not going to reflow it, but the solder on that fan header is not looking the greatest. And then our buttons are here and here. So we have our boot button and our reset button right there. So let's go ahead and get some paste put on this guy and we'll get the heatsink put back on and then we'll start working on the stand. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it. I'll show you what it looks like before I put the heatsink on and then I'll show you how to install the heatsink. But putting on the thermal paste, I'll show you guys. So just hang for a second. Be right back. Okay, guys, so there's our paste application. Now, I will say I use the little spudger tool to just make sure we're covered all the way. And then on the chips, I'll let the heatsink do the job. But I want to make sure that this is on thick on these two back pads, basically for the voltage regulators. I don't want them making contact with the heatsink. So let's take the heatsink. We're looking pretty healthy there. I don't think I need anything crazy. And we're just going to set this on here, trying to line up the screws the best we can. And then we're going to go ahead and get a screw located. We're going to locate the center screw first. So let me just dip in here and see if I can locate the center screw. I think I'm right on it. Man, that was good aim. Usually it's pretty terrible. We're just going to lightly tighten that one, not too much. And we're going to put in all the surrounding ones. So, and then like I said, we'll go corner to corner while we're tightening. Again, we don't want to overdo them. They don't need to be crazy tight. It looked like they weren't too crazy tight on there, so I think we're okay. And I'm just going to do like 1 or 2 turns to get them started, and then I will adjust them up. And then I'll put the fan on, but it's okay. I may have skipped a step here by not putting the fan on, but that's not a big deal. We can get that fan put on. Okay, so now we're just going to go corner to corner here until it feels a little tight, and then a little tension, and a little tension, and then a little tension. And then we'll touch the center to make sure it's got a little tension on it. Little tension. We're not trying to crush the ASICs, guys. We're just trying to get it tight, okay? And we'll just kind of go one turn at a time until I feel like we're tight. And then the center, I think we're good. And I think we're in business. We got lots of paste. We got a little bit coming out there, and that's good. So let's go ahead and put the fan on. This will be pretty straightforward to get because it's not too crazy. If you accidentally skip a step, I think you're going to be okay because there's nothing really on the front here to interfere with the fan. So I think we're in good shape there. Look at that. I'm not going to use the power screwdriver to put it back on, just to break them loose. I did. This little screwdriver is just fine. We don't need to be too crazy there. Okay. Last screw in. I do like the fact that this uses an XT30 connector and not a barrel jack. Um, I don't know the thermal or the limits of a barrel jack, but I can't imagine anything over 50 watts is safe. But I could be wrong. It could be more than that. It could be way better. So to put it back to its stock settings, we are here. We are back to where it was. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move this aside because I'm going to start working on this case. So here's the problem. These standoffs are not holding it down enough. So my theory is if I cut these off with a razor blade and go back over and use a small drill bit and just drill enough for one of these small screws to go in there, it will stay in place. So let's do that real quick. If you're using a razor knife, guys, please be careful. So I'm just going to go like this and hopefully not slice my finger. Perfect. That actually worked really well. Better than I thought. Perfect. The bottom might be a little bit difficult because it is slightly thinner, but I'm trying to keep my fingers away from the front of that knife, especially with that rusty blade on there. Okay. Sounds good. And then we'll do the same thing to this one as well. Perfect. Now we might need to get that one just a little bit more, I think. Okay, so then my next theory was, well, I want to make sure I get the holes in a proper alignment, correct? So we're going to set that in there. And then I actually have a silver marker I'm just going to dot it with. A little silver Sharpie I have. I'm just going to put a dot in there like that and like that. And then we'll come down to the bottom and do the same thing. And then that way, make sure we got good markings on there. Okay. And there we go. We got our 4 dots right there, and I can get a drill bit match it up so that it'll work with these screws. So hang on just a second. I'm going to go through my drill kit and find the right screw. All right, guys, so we're back. Holes are drilled. I used a little tiny drill bit like this just to kind of basically just kind of figure out what's going to work. And hopefully now that'll keep this in the stand, and so it doesn't become like a tip hazard. Because like I said, I almost lost it, and I would have been really bummed out if I'd have dropped it because of that. So now we have screw holes to attach it to the stand, and that hopefully will keep us from having any of those problems again. Yeah, that's much better. I like that. I like that a lot better. You know, for the most part, I haven't had any too much trouble, but like I said, I'd rather be safe than sorry. And especially when I'm moving miners around, the last thing I want is this thing to fall off the shelf. I'd be really bummed about that. So I will be moving miners around because I have see much better. I have some more miners coming in, some new ones for the new videos coming out soon. And so I'm going to have to start shuffling things around. And I'm also having an electrician put in another setup in there for me to run more machines. So that's going to be kind of cool. So screws work. We're in good shape. The next thing is we've got to figure out a way to attach this fan back here. I don't think we'll need to open up the vents back here because I think there's enough room for the air to move out. But we will need to get this fan back here, and we're going to have to open up this honeycomb. I would like to mount it kind of mid there, not at the top, not at the bottom, but kind of mid. So, yeah, let's figure out that real fast. I'm trying to think of ideas. Let's go ahead and get this back apart so I can get this. I don't want to be cutting on it when I have the device in the stand. So, I am really happy with that, putting them screws in. That makes a world of difference for my mental health. I'll know we're good, you know. I don't want it to fall. This is kind of top heavy because of that, because of the heatsink, because it's a big boy chunky heatsink. So let's move that out of the way. Let's just set it up here. And I will, so we have basically along the lines here we can cut out. And I think I've got an idea. I mean, I could always use a cutoff disc, but I'd rather keep it simple so everybody else can. So I'm just going to kind of go along here like this and mark it with the razor blade. It's 3D printed filament, so it's plastic, so it shouldn't be too big of a problem to cut. And I think we can probably cut it with a razor knife. If you're doing this, guys, please be careful. It's a lot sturdier than I thought. So let's go like that. Yeah, that might not work. It might be just that, or I have a really dull blade. So let me get some minute and I'll tell you guys how I figured it out. Give me a minute here. I'm going to go and find, I don't want to use a cutoff wheel because I think a cutoff wheel is kind of cheating. I'd like to try to keep it simple as possible with tools that you may have. So give me just a second. I'll be right back. Well, look at this, guys. So I stuck the screwdriver in there and it actually breaks pretty easily. And it's probably because it's 3D printed filament. So I just kind of went like this and it cracked. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. We can get it to break off just using the screwdriver and then maybe clean it up with a razor knife if we need to. Let's just do this. Yeah, that works nicely, actually. Yeah, that one might not break so easily. Oh, yeah, look at that. Perfect. We can knock all this plastic off and then maybe open it up a little bit with a razor knife or a file. Something I think you would have on hand. I'd like to do these to where it doesn't need to be complicated with tools. I know sometimes, you know, when you're setting up miners, sometimes people feel like they have to buy a bunch of stuff, but I only think you're going to be buying stuff like this, like specialty tools and stuff, if you're going to get crazy with them, like mining or overclocking and stuff. I don't think it's really absolutely necessary to buy the latest and greatest power supplies unless you actually need them. And I think that's good. I think we'll leave the bottom here. We don't really need to take too much. And then we'll come around here with the razor knife if we can, just to kind of cut them out. Again, cut away from yourself, guys. Please don't cut towards yourself. I really hate to be responsible for someone getting hurt, so do this at your own risk. My whole goal with showing these mods like this, guys, is to try to utilize what you already have. You know, you already have the stand. If you bought a Bitaxe Gamma Turbo or GT801, you already have the stand, so you don't really need to. Don't do this, guys, because that could get you. But you don't really need another, a new stand or anything like that. You can utilize the one stand, and it would work just fine. I'm going to leave these holes right here so that the fan will sit in here just like that, and we should be good shape. So now we're going to have to figure out how to fix this fan to here, and I think, honestly, I have some long screws, and you may not have these, guys, so just pre-warning, if you don't have screws, then you might have to hit the old hardware store for some screws. But I have some of these. These were off of the bit discs, and I think those will be long enough that if I do it right, I can step them into it without hurting it. Now, my one thought was actually heat them up and put them through the fan, like you put it on here like so, and then just heat these up and let them set in. But I also have to be careful that they don't protrude too far. If they protrude too far, let's say if you have it on here and they come through too far, they could touch the back of the board, and we don't want that. So I'll figure something out with these screws. If these ones don't work, we'll figure something out. So hang in there for just a second, guys. Okay, guys, so we got it. I basically used the same drill bit that I did to set these to do these as well. And now we will have a mounting place for our fan bolts so that it won't, well, the fan will stay in place. And I'm just using some old screws that I had. I would probably see if you could use shorter screws if you have them. This is just what I got. And so I'm just going to go with it. And try not to be too crazy. You don't need to crank it down too tight. Last thing you want to do is crack it. It is 3D print, so it could crack. But now we have that. And I think if I can find a shorter screw, I will. But I think we might need a shorter screw. I just don't like how close this is going to be to the connector. And I may just find a shorter screw if I've got one. And I may have one. I know that I think these came with some screws that I had, like cutter style screws. So let me look in my little box here. You never know. I collect screws and fasteners and all sorts of stuff just for this particular reason right here. You never know when you're going to need to mod something, and then you just like, oh, well. And if need be, we can leave these top two screws out, and I might just do that for now. I don't think it's going to rattle or make any noises. It's not loose at all, so I'm going to leave those out for now because I don't like how close they are here. And if I find some new screws, I'll update you guys. So now we've got a setup here. We've got a 2-fan setup. So let's go ahead and I'll clean the mat off real quick. We'll get the GT back over here and we'll put some heat sinks on it. And I'm going to do Solo Satoshi's recommendation from their website. They do have a full-on recommendation for heatsink placement and that kind of stuff. So we're going to do exactly what they say, and let's see if it helps. I'm sure it will because we haven't even overclocked yet, and it's been doing phenomenal. So put that right there. And let me grab a new box of heat sinks because I am almost out of aluminum ones. Right here. I'm using aluminum. You can use copper. I use aluminum because they're cheaper. I'm trying to do this on the cheap, just like all my other ones, and I've found that copper is good, but a lot of the heat sinks that come with the copper kits are really thick. The fins are, and with the aluminum ones, they're pretty thin, so they remove heat really well. So I think we're going to go 2 of those. I'm going to pull up their website just so I can show you guys exactly where they recommend heat sinks. Okay, so according to Solo Satoshi's site, I'm looking at their MOSFET heat sinks. They're saying to put one, let's use this here as a pointer, here on the VR and here, and then a square here and here. So I'm going to do those two. I'm going to put one on the inductor coils, and I'm probably going to put another one on this inductor coil as well. These chips here, and here, here, and here. So give me just a second. I'm going to get them all sorted out. Plus, I think my wife's calling me for dinner, so I'm going to pause this video and go eat dinner. I'll be right back, guys. Okay, guys, so I was looking over the options for heat sinks that I have. These ones are slightly too big, and you really risk touching these little tiny components here. So I'm just going to use 2 more of these and just do this like this. There's the copper ones. I do have some copper ones right here, but I don't have enough to do this back with this style of heatsink. This is definitely smaller than that, and that's probably why they recommended. Well, I mean, I know that a lot of people have it for the copper, but they recommended copper heat sinks in the video or in their on their website. But I just don't want to put one there, and maybe I'll hold off on even putting one on the back for now. I'm not concerned about the ASICs, and I never have been. I've always just worrying about voltage regulators and the power delivery system. So maybe we'll just hold off for now as far as putting heat sinks on the back of the chips, because we've all, anybody who's tested these thoroughly has noticed that it doesn't make much of a difference anyways. So plus we'll have air pointing directly back there. So let's just go ahead and get these power delivery set up. So we're just going to do these and these right here, voltage regulator and big inductor coil. If later on we come back and we find that we need to put some on here, we will. But I think for now we're just going to do these. So let's go ahead and peel the tape off these little guys. I think the reason the aluminum works so well is because of how thin the fins are. For example, I'll bring some copper ones. I got some copper right here. I'm going to place this heat sink and I'll show you what I mean. So let's go ahead and we'll just set this one right there. So if you look at the copper heat sinks, here's a small one. Here's a square. So you see how thick these are? Now look at how thick these ones are. They're really thin. And I think that really helps with dissipating heat. I think that's why I'm not 100%. I'm not a thermal engineer, but that's my thought on it at least, is that maybe that's why it works so well, because the fins are thinner. I've noticed when you modify the stock Bitaxe heat sinks, the fins are way better than like the Dark Horse, for example. And that's because the Dark Horse is got really thick fins and no it blows air out all over the place instead of right at the voltage regulator like on the gammas, on the cheaper gammas. So just a thought there. Again, I don't know for sure. I'm not a rocket scientist, man. I'm just a regular guy. If anything, my only experience is the fact that I'm a mechanic and I see aluminum heat sinks on components in cars. So that could be why. So one thing we were going to need to finish this off is a fan splitter. So if you think about it, you got the cost of the GT, which I'll tell you what I paid and how much it cost. Um, a cost of a 60 mil fan, whether it's a Noctua or whatever. I choose not to buy Noctuas because they're cheap. They're not cheap, and they're kind of, I don't know. They don't blow as hard as the stock fans do, so that's why I don't buy them. And I know that for a fact. But I choose to use cheaper fans just because budget, man. I spend enough on the miners already. I don't need to be spending $20 on a fan to go with it. So I have chose to stick with the stock fans. Now, do I have Noctua fans? Well, yeah, I was using Noctuas on the Doge Crap box. If you haven't seen that video, those were Noctua PPCs, and those retail for like $30. So the only reason I chose to use the PPCs is because when I bought the L3s, the guy included them with them. I bought both L3s plus 4 Noctua PPC fans. So if I wanted to get real crazy, I could use PPCs. So let's go ahead and put that on there. And that is our splitter. Now we will have to figure out a way to cable manage this a little bit, but that's okay. And then we're going to go ahead and put one fan on this one and then one on this one. Did notice that this is a 3-pin fan, so hopefully it works. It should. If not, we'll figure out something. We'll make a solution for it. Let's try to get this cable managed. And of course, I'm not using a zip tie because zip ties are pricey. I'm going to use a wire tie that came with the miner. So I think we can just honestly, I think if we just bundle it up right there, we should be in good shape. I'm going to grab a tie. 1 second, guys. So that was actually awesome. I just put the wire tie through the holes right here and perfect. It works great. So we'll just go ahead and go like this. And then the wire tie ain't going to fall through because we've got the holes there holding it in. And that's how I'm going to do it. It's going to look janky, but it'll work. So, okay. Well, let's get this over to the storage room where the power supply is. And we'll fire it up and we'll check thermals and close out the video. Hang on a second, guys. Okay, guys, so we're up and running. We have dropped the temperature on the ASIC a little bit, 57. Again, I'm not worried about the ASIC. I'm more worried about the voltage regulator. And this is where we're standing right now. Doing pretty good. Got it down to 51 on the voltage regulator. And our hash rate went up. It's actually been consistently hitting 2.2 terahash now. That's pretty awesome. We have a 0% error rate, and our wattage is 40 watts. So really good. I know this was a little bit longer of a video, guys, but I wanted to just kind of step you through my process when I'm modding a miner. And this was a good example of me just trying to reutilize what I have already to mod it. Now, one thing I will say is I may move this down to the next shelf so that it's not heat soaking from the sides, the other miners around it. If I put it next to the two bit track racks, I think it'll be okay. So anyways, guys, just wanted to say thanks for watching the video. I know this was a little bit longer, but I think it's informative. I think it's good to know this kind of stuff. So if you guys liked the video, put a like on there if you would. Leave a comment. How's your experience with the GT? I haven't overclocked it yet, and I plan to, so I'd like to see your guys' comments down below. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can find me over on the Jellyfish Discord. I am a staff member over there, and I can help any way I can. Check out the Jelly Miner game that's in the main net right now as well. So, anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Peace out.